My mother-in-law turns out to be the reason behind my destructive marriage, and you will not believe what she's been up to. Despite the real challenges, I found a man with whom I was supposed to start my life. A long-heighted man with sharp features with blue hazel eyes. The introvert personality with mild fair complexion, and the alluring personality that can drive any girl towards him. But unlike the other stories, there was a dark shadow following me, and this was none other than my mother-in-law, Mela. Her hatred grew even stronger that it made me suffocate. Even though my husband, Mill, seems to be pretty intrusive and private person, there was still a huge interference from his mother in our relationship. The story began when Mill and I decided to get married last summer. The two of us have been in a relationship since our school age. Mill, being an introvert, was having only me, being an extrovert, so we enjoyed each other's company. It was not obvious the two of us won't resist the spark that ignites our souls. Years passed and our relationship even grew stronger when time comes. When Mill sat on his knees, asked me to marry him, so I said yes to the man I loved the most in the world. We decided to keep our relationship evenly private, even from our families, as the two of us were not ready to face such an unnecessary drama. But the time has just arrived when there was no option left either to face them or what. As soon as Mill proposed to me, I said yes. The two of us did not want to waste time any further. So Mill and I decided that we'll break the ice with our families by inviting them to a casual dinner. Mill took the responsibility of arranging a dinner at a cozy restaurant. As planned, we brought our parents under the same roof. Mill announced our relationship, and as expected, there was dead silence. Not a single word, no response. This is insane, as the two of us least expect any response from our families. So I asked my parents what they think of it. The two families made a spontaneous response that they need to discuss the fact in private. The night went off, and the next morning I was supposed to meet Mill, but he did not respond to any of the calls. I, being a worried partner, drove straight away to his house, and as expected, I was evenly confronted by Mela. Her evil stare was not welcoming at all. I greeted her, and she welcomed me with insane remarks, and her words still pounded in my head. "Leave my son. I won't approve this marriage, and my son will only listen to me." I stood there in silence and waited for Mill. I was stunned as I wasn't expecting hatred from her. I was flustered after listening to her remarks, and I was finding Mill. She didn't even let me call him, and she told me that I have to ruse him, otherwise she'll jeopardize our relationship and will not let me marry him. I knew that in-laws are toxic most of the time, but I did not know it'll happen to me this early. In the meantime, I heard the voice of Mill, and he told me from his room that he's coming downstairs. He stepped down, grabbed his jacket and keys, and the two of us went on a drive, and we shared our family's intentions towards our relationship. It was just clear that his parents and my parents were not in favor, but the two of us can't travel down the road with their family's opinion. Mill and I were so dang sure about us, but again, there was one more condition. Mill and I can't afford a separate house. In other words, we have to share each other's space. Apparently, it seems that we might stick with this plan, but who knows what the future's knocking for us. Wasting no time, we decided to get ourselves married. Despite our family conflicts, we got married, and the day I still remember, we vowed each other to shower our love and loyalty towards each other. No doubt our families do attend the ceremony, but there was only us who were happy to the moon and back. Right after our marriage, Mill and I were living in our own places. We met twice a week, and sometimes we tend to spend the weekend together. Mill avoided his mom, as he clearly sees her intention towards me, but Mela was always up to something. In the first few months, things between us seem to be settled, but things are not the way it seems so. Mill and I are dealing with growing conflicts due to the unavailability. One day, I discussed the whole thing with my mom. and she suggested I move in with him as these conflicts might get some fixation, only when they're available. I agreed and decided to move in. Therefore, I discussed the whole thing with Mill, and as expected, he did not understand me. We fall into a terrible fight. I was the one figuring it out, and Mill stood with his mother's point, as he's communicating that moving with him would be a terrible idea. Surprisingly, my father heard the whole conversation that I had with him on the phone. He knocked on the door and asked me to sit beside him. It was the very first time that he was going to talk to me, as I was the one who made him feel terrible. I married Mill without his consent, so till that day he left me alone. I was in tears, completely devastated. He confronted me with his words and communicated with me that he was against the marriage because he feels Mela was a threat towards Mill and my relationship. Yeah, although it's true, my father reassured me that he is with me and suggested to me that the two of them are married and they should be living together. If it's hard for Mill to keep you over there, then invite him here to stay at your place. Well, I was relieved, but considering the whole situation, I made complete silence. The next morning, Mill came over, apologized, but when I placed the opinion that he should move in here, he rejected it and asked me if it's more viable. I packed my stuff and I moved to his place just to give our relationship another chance. As soon as Mill and I moved in there were again some troublesome conflicts that were on board due to Mela. Soon after a week, I was fired from my job, and now I had to deal with my mother-in-law. She used to play games with us. For instance, she was a completely other person when the two of us are in front of Mill. She turns out to be very loving mother-in-law who simply loves me. Yeah, what hypocrisy. One day, I was working in the kitchen and I made this perfect delicious food for my husband. Mela came in there and evaluated the whole scenario while I was working. I wasn't having good vibes from her, as she was up to something, and my intuition was telling me again and again, but I ignored it. I finished my work and went to take a shower. At night, Mill came and I gave him the food and dinner that I made for him specifically. Suddenly, he started choking, and I was afraid of what was happening. He started saying that I'm the embodiment of evil and I wanted to kill him. How's that possible? I made the perfect food. It wasn't abysmal at all. I swooped into the kitchen and evaluated the whole food. I tasted and my tongue was on fire. It was so spicy that not a normal human being can eat it at all. My aggressive emotions skyrocketed and I knew who did this to me. It was none other than Mela. I swooped into the room and confronted her what she's done. Mill wasn't even listening to me and he starts screaming at me like a wild animal. I was devastated and wanted to escalate the situation. I can see the evil smile on her face, but why can't Mill see it? Why were his emotions towards his mother blinding him? I was the love of his life, and he should be at least giving me the benefit of doubt if he can't trust me. She's such a hypocrite. One day, I tried to communicate with Mill that his mother reflects mean comments to her and evenly disgraces her. But mother-in-law only sees what his mother wants him to know, so he did not even bother how she treated him. In fact, I was the one wholly ignored. My mental health was getting worse day by day. I placed a call to my parents and communicated with them that the relationship's not working, but it seems that they really don't have any concerns with me. My father told me that he and my mother are leaving the countryside. In other words, they told me that I must deal with the whole thing alone, on my own. I, being completely innocent kind of person, did not know that there was someone keeping ears on me. Mill entered the room and he looked furious. It was just obvious that Mela had now played another game. Mill looked furious and asked that he's reconsidering our marriage. He asked me what I think about the whole thing, as the marriage between them is not working at all. I was completely speechless and I asked, "Why are you acting like a nonsense person? You know I'm very concerned about you. I can't leave you. I'm very serious about you." The two of us were very right on our points, but the fact that was none of us either was in the mood to understand each other's place. Beating the courage, I spilt the beans and told him that his mother is behind all this. As soon as I spilled those words, I was immediately snubbed by him, as he was the perfect mama's boy, and could not even hear a word against her. That day just made me realize that I'll never ever get away from her. But on either side, I still love Mill, and moving out of the whole relationship's none the less than a foolish act. So I decided to build a sustainable relationship with Mela. The rest of the week, I followed her every single instruction, the way she wants me to work, at home doing household chores, and every single thing. Apparently, it seems that things were settling down for now, but who knows? Things can turn off the road. Mela introduced me to his social circle, and for now, I stopped thinking about the job as I was just busy making my mother-in-law and my husband satisfied. It was a winter eve, and my mother-in-law asked me to make some tea for everyone. I served the tea to them, but as soon as I stepped out of the living room, I heard that Mela was making fun of me with her friends. In the middle of husband's chores, I did not have left with any time to myself. The whole thing literally just shook me. I went back to collect the dishes, but here comes my mother-in-law, who tried to display the fact that she is the one who's always concerned about me. In front of the guest, she passed a very sarcastic remark about my baggy clothing and messy hair. I just broke down in tears, but as everyone was in the room, I just decided to act like a very normal person and hide it. I sat back and waited for Mill to talk out. Before I could utter a word to him, my mother-in-law stepped in and just showed him. She kissed my forehead and hugged me, saying that she's thankful that I served the tea to the guest, and everyone likes her a lot. I was totally astounded that what exactly happened just now. I stood there in complete silence and scrutinized her body language. Mill added that if I'm doing those things that his mother asked him to do, then everything's going to be A-okay. Mela left the two of them with an evil smile, and here I knew that I won't be enough to reveal her true face to his son. Everything in the house seemed to be harmonious, and as expected, I was the only one who created disparity in the whole household. But in a few days, Mela was about to push me into those things that I did not even want to do. The time has come when she knows that she has complete control over me and her son's life. Mela said first you did not go to your parents' house without my permission. Quote, "If you told anyone or Mill these things, I'll make sure that you'll suffer with the worst. You know I didn't like you, so that's why I didn't care what happens to you." Mela started to show her bad side to me without fear that I would retaliate. She kept on adding household chores, and the intensity evenly grew. A forceful glimpse was that I had to cook food 3 times a day. And also I have to clean the house because when I came, she kicked the cook and cleaner out of the house. So now I have to do this own responsibility. Every single day, I have to maintain the whole household chores along with 3 times a meal as well. My career is jeopardized and now my physical health is at stake. Things were suffocating me and every single day I was completely getting detonated. My husband was just a puppet who was being operated on the instructions of my mother-in-law. I was insulted, played, and since then I was the only wrong person then and there. There's always a limit, and it seemed that soon I would explode. One day, a friend of mine from high school visited me. He came over to my house and he saw how I was being treated by my mother-in-law. It was James. James, Mill, and I, the 3 of us, were mutual friends and had a great time together. He had to leave earlier, but I know him, that he was going to talk to Mill about the whole ordeal. When Mill just came back home, I was excited to tell him that I'm being offered a job at James' firm. But instead of celebration, the happiness together, Mill asked me if I want a divorce. I was totally shattered and asked him what made him think like that. He did not give me any of the reasons and asked me to leave. I was left with no other option, so I left his house with a heavy heart. as I was the only one who invested every single thing to save the relationship. I ended up in the home that was just left by my parents, so I decided to come over to the whole thing. I joined a new job, invested my entire potential into it. At that very moment, I received a text from Mill. He says that he's sorry for everything. He knew that his mother is doing this, but he can't withstand against his mother. But it's too late now. I filed the case for divorce against him, and he left with regrets for all of his life. In the coming weeks, we divorced and I was totally done with it. Seemingly, I was doing great. But then comes James. He asked me for a relationship. I wasn't ready enough to be in another relationship right then and there. So I ignored him and asked James if I'd be needing some time to think about it. We took a year of gap and James and I were clear on the boundaries. I moved to Los Angeles for my job, and since then I and James have been together. Soon we get introduced to each other's families, and our relationship has been accepted, in fact appreciated. So the conclusion is that it's always the person himself who values and devalues his own. So, another crazy mother-in-law drama. Guys, let me know in the comment section. It just seems these mother-in-law stories are cracking up. We're getting more and more of the most villainous, toxic mother-in-laws. I want to know, who has your vote for the most toxic mother-in-law on the channel? Guys, my money's always gonna be with Magda. If you don't remember Magda, you can find her on her channel. That's another toxic mother-in-law. But drop your comments down below and let me know what you think of this story. I would love to hear your opinions on it, guys. And we'll look at the final story of the day. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister's friend she's not welcome in our house after she abandoned us? My sister celebrated her birthday by going bar hopping. Her friend, which I already don't care for, was coming too. My mom's sister and I live together, and my mom also doesn't like the friend. The friend called my sister early in the day and said she didn't want to go. Then hours later, as my sister and I are getting ready, the friend says, she's coming. For some reason, it takes her 2 to 3 hours to get ready. I don't know. My sister was meeting another friend at the bar too. It's time to go, and the girl's still not ready. My sister asked if I can drive the girl's car while she finishes her makeup, and I said no. The girl drives us all to the bar and gets lost, which I don't understand how, considering we've been here 10,000 times in the last 10 years. We finally arrive and we're looking for a parking spot. The girl passed up several parking spots I pointed out to her and parked half a mile away from the bars, leaving us to walk in the ice cold. So, we meet with the guy friend who's also irritated because we'd taken forever. Many hours and drinks later, well, it's time to go. I wasn't drinking as much as the others, so I wanted to drive us home due to everybody being drunk and even throwing up. The girl, well, met a dude and wanted to say bye to him, so we waited on her. After 15 minutes, we went looking for her and could not find her. I called her phone 10 times. She finally answers and says she started walking to the car with this guy. I asked her why she would just leave knowing we're waiting on her, and she said she thought we left, which just makes no sense since she was the driver. I think she just wants alone time with this dude. We meet with the girl and we all continue to walk to the car, and my sister's guy friend asked if I can drive his car to where we parked. We all agreed that we would meet up at her car, and the girl promised that she would not leave. She told us she and this dude will walk to the car and stay put. Yeah, she promised she would. 5 minutes later, we drove where she parked and we see the car's gone. My sister calls her and she said that she had to go to the bathroom, so she drove to a gas station 10 minutes away. At this point, I was done with her. We meet her at the gas station and I told her she should not be driving and she could have called us at the very least to let us know she left after she promised she would not move. I told her I'm sick of her doing stuff like this, and it's not cool to prioritize random men you meet at a bar over your friends. So I ended up getting a Lyft drive for me and my sister, and told the friend that she's not welcome in our house anymore. She got an attitude, and my sister said I'm being too extreme, but I think she's trouble, and I don't want her around. My mom also doesn't want her in the house. I'm starting to wonder if she does drugs too, because she kept sniffing and rolled up a dollar bill fell out of her purse. And if that's the case, I definitely don't want her around. Okay, so here's a couple comments we'll read. Not the a-hole. A rolled up dollar bill is only used for one thing. And trust me, I'm speaking from experience. That's not someone you would want around your sister. I don't know if she's really abandoning you, but there's definitely enough shady stuff that I agree with you. Second comment says basically the same thing, just like every comment does on this thread. Not the a-hole. She's rude and inconsiderate, and it's 100% valid to not want to be around someone that's probably doing drugs. Alright guys, let me know your thoughts. Drop it down below. If you were in this exact same scenario and you were the sister, what would you do? Let me know your thoughts on that. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can find all my channels in the description below. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you in the next one.